Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. Also, Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. We are an operational family office working in Florida and also in California, in Silicon Valley. So today's episode is all about building smarter from day one and what it really takes to launch and scale autonomous systems in the real world. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to Jay Kriner, founder and CEO of GALE Project Technologies. He's a 6-time startup founder with multiple exits, a Shark Tank featured success, and deep hands-on experience taking products from raw concept to real-world deployment. At GALE Project Technology, Jay is leading the development of modular AI-enabled autonomous systems designed for public safety, infrastructure resilience, and defense-adjacent application systems that don't just look good in demos, but operate in high-stakes, real-world environment. Today, we're going to explore how Jay thinks about launching AI-first companies, architecting autonomy responsibly, and scaling complex hardware-software platform without losing speed or trust. If you're building an AI, robotics, defense-adjacent tech, or infrastructure, I simply want to understand where autonomous systems are truly headed. This episode is packed with insight. So with that, I'd like to bring Jay on board. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me.
So you've done 6 companies. What is this? Is a Shark style company that you have? What was it? Wasn't one of these
Tank feature?
Yeah.
Oh, so I can't live this one down. It is completely not tech whatsoever. But it was one of those fun viral products. It was a belt buckle that folds out and holds a can or a bottle, so your beverage. That company was created and put on Shark Tank in season 4, episode 1, and we ended up doing a deal with Barbara Corcoran. And from there on, it just went viral. It became the world's most viral product, 2017, and that was history. And then we moved on to tech.
And how was it dealing with Barbara Corcoran? Did they really get involved?
They're all great. Honestly, all of them. There was a lot of humor just around the set, working with them in general. All of their staff were super supportive. Everybody was having a great time and excited about what you were doing, regardless of what it was. I mean, if you can imagine, we weren't really solving too many problems with the belt buckle that holds your drink. But at the end of the day, it became one of those sensations for weddings to events. It was just a humor piece.
And then did they actually get involved? Did they help you, or was it all? Is it all just talk?
Oh, no, 100%. Just by being on the show was a tremendous help. If you can imagine, our episode was like just the season premiere. It went around the world, and we could actually see the traffic as it came through. It was like U.S., then Canada, then went to Europe, then we'd see it overseas in Asia. It was just, you could see and track it. So just by being on the show was one of the biggest privileges and honors I could ask for, to be honest with you. It was worth millions at that point.
And then so when you go down through that with them, I had heard sometimes they say they're going to invest and they don't invest. Is that true?
I can't explain anything that happens on the other contestant side, but all I can say is I'm super, super grateful for everything that they've done for me and Bev Buckle. And, they followed through on everything they've said that they would. And like I said, I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's great. And so how did you go from there for the belt buckle to tech?
I have no idea. I think ADD helped a lot on that one. So in 2016, I started doing drones, getting into it a little bit. I was a defense contractor at the same time, and we were using a drone to do some mapping of just an old landfill area. And back then, we didn't think of drone as first responders was a solution quite yet, and it wasn't as broad. But it was obvious, if we could fly something and get there faster, and it's not an airplane, it's not a helicopter, and it obviously can get there quicker than anybody in a motor vehicle. So the concept started to grow from there at 2016. And I sit on these things for years, like any entrepreneur, and you have a million ideas and you got to pick out which one you're going to go for. So after years of debating, really diving in deep on how I would engineer it, design it, and then diving into finding out, is it feasible? Is it going to be financially rewarding at the end? Is it going to be a dead end? So it was in 2024. I had just left one of the companies I was working with as an executive. And I was like, you know what, guys? I'm going to pull the trigger on this. This thing is a hot ticket. Drone as first responder was really ramping up in 2024. It was already out, but it was still kind of fresh. I was like, now is the time, file the IP, go after it, start doing the design work and hit the R&D level. And that's kind of what grew GALE, immediately, and kind of our topic of like how it happened so fast. And we say this like kind of lightly, but we started kind of doing it in 24, and 25 really started to make things happen. And we went from just concept to reality of a prototype in 180 days. And that was all by design. So yeah, it was a rapid pace. And now we're kind of like the new guy on the block who's really cornered a certain market on this.
So what problem did you see in the world that led you to create GALE, and why was now the moment to build it?
This is a great one. So where I live in the Texas Hill Country, we've all heard about the Kerr County floods that happened this past summer. There was 119 souls that had lost their lives at that point. It was based off of one flood that didn't have the infrastructure involved. They didn't have early alert systems or monitoring or rapid response. It just wasn't built that way in the infrastructure. Our product was out before that because we're in a flood-prone area. I've seen this at least once a year. A river around here ends up flooding and people do lose their life. It was pulling that trigger and then making
it happens fast too, Jay. Yeah, it does. It
does.
I know
we didn't come up with it.
Pennsylvania, by my parents' house, we had a massive flood one time, and it was unbelievable how people would get out and look at the riverbank, and they didn't understand they could die. You know what I mean? They had to this thing happened really fast.
Well, you're out there for recreation. I mean, this can happen along any type of coast as well. Any storm that comes in, swells that happen, or undertows. But it was more like I was around this enough times that I had to come up with a solution. I knew drone as first responder was great. And I kept looking at where's the number one spot that never gets affected, that never gets flooded. And if you look at any news or broadcast about natural disaster, you'll see one thing. It's the top of a utility pole. Now the power might go out, but that top of a utility pole still stands. And I was like, that's it. That's where it all has to be, where everything is going to be there closer to where the incident actually is, not farther down the line or away from the incident. So I was like, okay, top utility pole. What do? We know we want a drone to come out of a system. What does that system look like? And then that kind of spawned what one idea became 20. If we're not flying a drone, what problem are we really solving? And then I was like, okay, well, let's add a camera. Now we can do active monitoring. Let's add the early alert. Let's add a halo ambient light system. There was so much more that we added because we were already solving the drone as first responder. But if I'm not flying it, what else can I do? And that's what started to read more of what the GALE system is now.
So, GALE focuses on modular autonomous systems. Why is modularity so critical when building AI-enabled platforms for public safety and infrastructure? And why don't other people do it that way?
Why don't folks do it? That's, when you invent something, you always ask that question, like, why am I the first? But when you look at the modularity of it, I had to do interviews with end users, and that really helps me design a better product as we're doing R&D. So I was interviewing the PD, the fire department, search and rescue folks, you name it, infrastructure. And they said the number one thing was, there's two kind of tandem. One, we don't have the budget for a drone. And I was like, okay, well, do you have a budget for a camera system? They're like, yes. Okay, perfect. You can now get just that bottom section. And then later, when you have the financial capabilities or the FAA regulation waivers, you can add on our drone system on top. So the modularity was a big factor, but more so, some folks don't need everything. Maybe they only want the camera and the drone. Maybe some of them want a drone radar because it's close to an airport. Having the modularity allows you to tailor to the end user's needs specifically, but at the same time, be able to scale and grow because of an open architecture. If someone says, hey, this new tech came out this next year, I want to integrate that into the GALE system, can we do it? And the answer is going to be yes. So the modularity was the key aspect. And one of the things that we saw was everybody was focusing on only a drone deployment. So they call it drone in a box. And that's exactly what it is. It's a box on the ground. opens up and a drone flies out and lands and recharges. Well, that's all on the ground, exactly where these emergencies still happen. Floods, natural disasters. I mean, you can imagine it's still down there. Well, we're like, okay, let's make it modular up high, and it offers more solutions all in one system versus 6 vendors.
Does it come out of a silo? Is it like those?
Yeah.
What are they in the? Not the slingshot, the one that the military has. I can't think of the name of it. There's a small one and a larger one. But is it
Yeah,
that concept?
it's kind of funny. My wife told me, be careful because I talk with my hands. And when I'm talking with you this morning, so here's my hands. All right. So it's a silo system, and it is cylindrical that goes on top of a utility pole. And then on top is a dome. That dome retracts open, and then a drone flies out. So it's all encapsulated, protected, all within one sleek system. And we had to dive down as far as the aerodynamics. How come it's not square? Where does the rain cast off? We had to really dive down into just the appearance model looks like, and then the operation that goes inside.
Many people talk about autonomy, but few people deploy it in real environments. What's the hardest part of moving from prototype to field-ready autonomous systems?
Tech's expensive. There's that. That's straightforward. When we created our prototype, it was, my first model ever was you go to Home Depot and you order stuff from Amazon. So I used a concrete form tube cylinder, and this is the funny part, was a doggy window for a fence. So it's a dome, a hemisphere, and we put that on top, and we got a visual. So how do we take Home Depot stuff and then bring it to a full autonomous system? The nice thing is like when we first filed the IP, yes, I wrote the AI model, I wrote the entire software, the prompt flows, everything about it. But as tech is so rapidly changing, we know that there's other solutions out there already that are turnkey. There's some things we didn't have to invent. We didn't invent the camera, right? So the camera exists. So how can I integrate more things out there from third parties to integrate in to create a scalable product faster? And that was through strategic partners. One of the ones I love to say is Hanwha Vision. They're a $6 billion global camera and security company. Their cameras have a lot of features built in, including AI, their own processors, everything all within one without going through a cloud. I was like, well, you just leapfrogged everything I was about to do in R&D by just partnering with you and integrating into my system. So when it starts to come to autonomy, there's a lot of software out there already.
Those units you're using inside of your system, you're using their product. Who is
Yes.
Hana? Hana, is it called?
Hanwha Vision. And full NDAA compliant, they work with the municipalities already. So it's not a new product. It's not something that we're not supposed to be having these days. So it's fully deployable and global, and it was a perfect partnership for us. But when it comes to the autonomy aspect of it, there's a ton of software, and it's ever evolving every day and getting smarter and faster. And now it's just down to how can we start to communicate it when there is the emergency. So we've got the Power by Ethernet, PoE, is how it communicates. If the power goes down, how can my autonomous system still work? And that's where LTE, SAT communications, there's a lot of features now that are just easy and accessible. And by integrating those systems in, it was turnkey.
So how do you balance AI decision-making with human oversight in high-stakes use cases?
All right. So for everybody who uses AI is one of the biggest search engines, these days, right? Well, AI is a tool. We can definitely learn more faster. And I remember, and probably you do too, I went to Harvard's AI Innovation of Healthcare program and got a specialization from it just to learn how to prompt engineer. You don't have to engineer anymore. Now it's just natural language and you can get things done. We use it really as a tool. And as a startup, I had to leverage, all the different type of AI platforms to get answers faster that I can make a proper decision, based off of that. Keep in mind, AI is not going to give you facts 24/7. It's whatever it's going to crawl and scrape and acquire from the internet. And a lot of that is not going to be what you're looking for. So the human oversight, you have to be able to filter out and make the proper decision and don't rely on the AI. But I'm going to tell you, AI, these platforms help me go from everything from what computer systems, the prompt engineering, the patent, documents that I had to go through, how to structure these things the right way, even a business structure. It gives me options that I can go through. So I leveraged it tremendously. And I will tell you, like most people today, use some form of generative or some open platform AI as their daily tool, even from emails to, sculpting contracts or contract reviews. So we used it to, no joke, slingshot us out as fast as possible. It was like having a team of 200 people every day.
So public trust is a huge issue in AI autonomous tech. How do you design systems that earn trust, not just from customers, but from society?
That's a good one because we're still trying to create some type of regulation on AI. We're not going to be there quite yet because it moves so fast. Just a good example, GPT is not the same as it was last year. And I've got to play with the GPT-1 model. And the answers it would give you were just like out of this world, and maybe abusive in a way. So they're starting to get a little bit better, but how we can filter it out is still having human oversight. Again, AI is a tool. It is not to be the all saving grace, one thing dependent on itself. But when we start to design it, because AI can design AI now, but we have to start with some basis. Is who's putting the information into that AI model will give you a better product out. Has to be unbiased. There's a lot of back end things most folks don't understand is when you create this big system, somebody with an opinion made it. And is that the opinion everybody's going to share? So I would say 100% we're going to have oversight. With autonomous systems, the operator will still have a command center and decide this is a yes or go, a no, or don't deploy for our system.
So from your perspective, what's misunderstood about defense adjacent technology? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for positive impact?
A lot of folks don't understand some of the greatest innovations we've in the consumer world was first created in the defense sector. They keep it quiet, and all of a sudden we see it and we think it's a great new thing, and then it's kind of commercialized. Nowadays, it is much faster, and they call it dual use. So if we were to put our application into a military installation, it has specific features, but we're going to be able to move and scale on that much faster and then find a commercial aspect use for it. It is very adjacent. They share a lot of the same features. And it's one of those where we're trying to help, security, national security, not just for our country, but for others. But it's the same technology that's going to help save a life. And that doesn't matter if it's defense or not. Some of the features we have in our DoD variant might just be the materials that we use. It might be another plugin that we have. But when it comes to the same end goal, it's always the same.
Scaling autonomous systems involves hardware, software, regulation, and partnerships. Where do most startups underestimate the complexity?
If you're trying to solve the problem by yourself, it's not going to go so well, and it usually takes a lot more time and money. Leverage smarter people and surround yourself by like-minded individuals, and you'll succeed a ton faster. Let's just use that camera system from Hanwha again. I knew I needed a camera. And then I started researching cameras. Then I reached out to them. And then they said, hey, we got this fancy showroom. Do you want to come check it out? In Houston. I was like, let's go. And I went, I saw everything. And then they told me every feature. And I was like, everything I was about to try to do in-house, you already do. And then I told them what I was doing. And I said, hey, can we test the system? Can I see if it works? Because this is my business plan and what we're trying to achieve. Those partnerships right there were validating, just for what our mission was. But what their equipment is capable of saved me $20+ million in R&D, manufacturing, supply chain, 5 years at least. So these partnerships are big. If you're coming out with a product, see if you can leverage someone who's already in the space or adjacent or has a part of what you're trying to build, and interview them. Tell them what you're working on. See if there's any type of synergy you can have. And if you can, integrate with them, because the more you sell of their product, the more they're going to support you.
So if you've gone down through this startup journey, what's the biggest mistake that startup entrepreneurs make, and how do you overcome it?
One is you can't do everything. Like kind of mentioned, I have done multiple startups, and none of them are ever the same. This one, it felt right first, and then it was like, okay, maybe I'm over my head a little bit. And you got to get out of that, I would call it like not just arrogance, but confidence level of saying, I don't know the answer, but I need to find out. So you on your own end as a founder need to do the research, but then find someone who's an expert and feel comfortable with letting them take the reins of something that is out of your wheelhouse. You have to have that confidence to share, and building that team around you is a big part of it. One of the things I keep saying is, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room, I'm just the idea guy, and I need to leverage everybody else because you guys are the one to make it really happen.
You've taken products from concept to commercialization multiple times. What does launching smarter with AI actually mean in practice?
Well, one, we know that the marketability, when we do marketing materials, using AI is like having your own marketing firm. So that's the perfect way when you start to launch a product. But run use case scenarios. Use AI as like an analytical device and say, here's my product. I'm going to put it in this market. Run an analysis. Tell me your opinion of what you think could happen. Or is there a better sector? What you're doing is you're asking opinions, but it's coming back with data it found and analytics. And then it's up to you to decide if that's the right path for you. So from the marketing aspect to running the analytics or the data on various systems, and I would say have multiple tabs open on your computer and run the exact same prompt or question through each one of them, because they're going to come out with a little bit of different answers. But when you start to find that commonality, then you're onto something different because they're all sharing the same thought process.
Looking ahead 5 years, how do you see autonomous systems reshaping public safety and infrastructure globally?
It is the future, 100%. If I could say we're going to put less lives out there in danger, which is our public safety first responders, and we're going to be smarter about what we're making our decisions on. Not only can we track license plates of a stolen vehicle or someone missing, we can do heat recognition if there's a fire farther away. And if we're going to try to respond like with our system, we can say you do not need 6 ambulances or 5 fire trucks. You only need 1 because this is exactly what's happening live. Having that smart infrastructure is really going to change how we deploy, how we save money, how we save more lives, and use less resources.
So, finally, for founders building AI first or autonomy-driven startups today, Jay, what's one hard lesson you wish you've learned earlier?
One of those ones where I have made this my life. I work 8 days a week, 20 something hours a day. That's the grind of being a startup and a founder. Making sure you have the support system around you emotionally, because being a startup founder is never easy. And if you have the financial backing, that might be great. But if you don't, you got to keep pushing forward. And that mental aspect of it is the one thing that I have definitely learned to do different this time. This time, I've got an amazing support system emotionally, my family, my friends. And that's just one of those things where that's going to keep pushing you forward. And you're going to have rough times. You're going to have the financial rough, the mental rough. You're going to hear no 100 times, if not more. But you just keep persevering. You just keep going straight forward and do the same thing every day. Some people call that insane, doing the same thing repetitively with the same answer. But the next day you can say, I'm going to do it differently today. What's going to be that outcome?
How do you balance work life and family life?
Well, again, you got to have that great support. And my wife is one of those big ones. So for me, it's time management. I work on tomorrow today. Instead of figuring out what I'm going to do today, I figured out what I'm going to do tomorrow, next week, next year. And I reverse engineer everything to where I have this roadmap. By doing that allows me to execute faster, smarter, and methodic. And that way I can have more time to balance that work life, pick up my kids at 2:30 or 3:30 from school. When my wife gets home, I can still have that time and disconnect. That's the big part.
So, closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Jay?
Please reach out. Find us on galeproject.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty heavy on that. I do a lot of messaging through there as well. If you have any questions about being an entrepreneur or about our systems or just in general want to connect, that's always the best options.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. And thanks to all of you for joining one more time. And thanks to you, we're well over 1,500 podcasts and several million views. So thanks to you for making us successful. So stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I will be back to you again soon with another exciting edition of GSD Presents Top Global Startups. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jay.